My name is Frost FM, and I'm currently an active music producer on Spotify. As you can see, I have 231,000 active monthly listeners. And as a part of how I maintain that viewership, it's through Spotify playlist advertising, which, if you scroll down, you can see one of the playlists I'm talking about. As with it, I have 3,682 likes, and I've promoted it through something called Spotify advertising, and I want to go over that. Now, as you may know, we already have things on the Spotify for Artists page that says Showcase, Marquee, Discovery Mode, and so on. However, this is something entirely different where you're able to actively promote on the platform itself by going to ads.spotify.com. And it's here where a lot of the magic happens to me, and I wanted to go over how I set up my ad campaigns. With that said, you usually find something along the lines of a join now right here, just in order to make your account and stuff. So once you have all that set up, usually you just click this, and then a new window should pop up. And once that occurs, you'll be able to see all your active campaigns and everything. So for me, I'm just going to hop straight into it. And you can create a new campaign by clicking this create button right here. Now that we're at the create new campaign page, we can go ahead and decide what type of campaign we get. And for me, I want to build awareness. So I usually go with impressions, as I want to be exposed to a new audience. I want to create something that will engage with them. And I usually have something that's precise and able to pinpoint them. So with that said, for the sake of this video, I'm just going to create the campaign name called Filler Campaign. However, you can call it whatever you want in order to help you better organize. So just name it something that you'll remember, or maybe put a special tag on it so you know it's different from another ad campaign, and then you can get started. Now, what you want to get started with, again, for the ad set, this is a part of the campaign itself, is another ad. So I'm going to go ahead and call this Filler Ad Set, as you can make multiple ad sets within a campaign for reference. From there, you want to select the category, and usually, since we're promoting our music, it's going to be media, entertainment, music, which is a no-brainer. And from there, artists on Spotify. Now, this is something you want to pay attention to, because if you don't turn this on, you won't be able to see some of the traffic that's going from your ad to your Spotify playlist or your single. And in some cases, you can even link directly to your profile, but I prefer playlists because people are going to binge watch that content. So you're going to want to turn on tracking, and from there, type in your Spotify username or artist name or whichever you prefer. Click that, click on it, and you should be able to start having some of your data pop in after, I'd say, the first 48 to 72 hours. But overall, with like a lot of Spotify advertising campaigns, I'd actually give it like a week or two, because usually by then you'll have a lot of good data in order to evaluate whether or not you want to sustain that ad campaign. So just keep that in mind. And they even say a lot of the good data doesn't pop up until 2 weeks later. All right, with that out of the way, location. For the sake of simplicity, I usually choose United States of America, but you can choose any country that you want, any location you want. If you feel you kind of know the area, you know what to kind of advertise and whatnot. So you have to figure that out on your own, but some countries are cheaper, some are more expensive, so try to keep that in mind. But for a lot of my campaigns, I target United States of America, so there's that. You can also choose the age groups you want, from all the way to 65 and up. You can target all that here, but for sake of my ads, I usually just select all ages. As what's more important than the age and gender to me is selecting their interests and behaviors. And I usually select fan bases, because through there, say, I don't know, you can just, if you have another artist that you're familiar with and they have a similar sound to you or similar fan base or people that might actually resonate with your music, you can go ahead and select this and start filling out as many different artists as you want. But usually, I usually go with 5, 10, maybe 15 in some cases. But just select the amount that feels right. So that way you're targeting people that are actually interested in that thing. Like if you're promoting a rap album and you're trying to promote to people who are, say, like in a pop or country like artists or something like that, like you got to think, who am I marketing to? Who's this for? So please try to keep that in mind when you do targeting fan bases. As you can also do it by their interests, music genre, and contextual playlists. But for me, fan bases has always worked the best. And after that, you can select the language. You can, for me, since I speak English, obviously English. But if you have an ad that's in a different language, well, try that as well. But I also just leave it on all languages. I've never seen a need to change it. And for platforms, you can select all, or you can just select the iPhone, Android, desktop. But again, I find a lot of the mobile stuff works best. So you can just leave that alone, or you can just target mobile users. Now, as for format and placement, you can create horizontal and vertical videos. But in a lot of cases, like I only really use music only, as they can also run it on music and podcasts. But for the sake of my ads, since it's people who are looking for new music, I just select music only and I create it as an audio ad. Next, you can go through budget. You can like do an average daily budget, which is where I would recommend putting anywhere between $1 to $10 a day, depending on your budget, just to kind of go towards that campaign. Or you can do a lifetime budget, which is where you give it a certain amount and then it'll just do it based on your, I guess, how well the ad is performing. So it'll put in a certain amount every day. But for me, I prefer a lifetime budget, and usually any budget between $100,000 is really enough. Like, I mean, you can get away with 50, but I would kind of just experiment before throwing like larger sums of money at it, just to kind of get a feel for it, see what works, what doesn't, and then scale up. Now, as for schedule, you can set this up any way you want. Usually I let a campaign last at least a month, so that way I can kind of fully grow and populate. And if it's doing really well, I might extend it for a couple of months or indefinitely. It just depends on what I'm trying to do with that campaign. So just keep that in mind. And I've never really needed to jack with this. Like, you can if you want. It's a frequency cap per day, per week, per month. But I've never really need to mess with this at all. So just keep that in mind. Now, next is going to be the bid cap. Now, this is kind of like bidding for advertising spots. So usually for me, I try to do like within the highest range I can, which is in this instance would be 1152. You can bid even higher than that, but I've found diminishing returns. I just do as much as you can afford. Don't stress over it. If you can't get that max amount, just do what you can afford and don't trip. All right, and as for pacing, honestly, I wouldn't worry. Just leave it as default. You won't, trust me, you don't need to jack with that. You can experiment with accelerated pacing, but honestly, for a lot of my ads, standard works well enough. Now, next, you're going to want a name for the ad. Again, just try to keep in mind something you can remember. So I'm going to go ahead with filler. And from there, pick your advertiser name. I'm just going to choose my artist name, which is Frost FM. So keep that in mind. People will see that. And then you can add a tagline, which is going to show, let me put something here. Listen to our playlist. Now, as you'll see here, it'll load somewhere down there. Yep, listen to our playlist. Now, you can make something more creative and imaginative than that, but for the sake of this illustration, this is what it'll look like. So just keep that in mind. Ad language, you can choose whatever language you want the ad is in. And since I speak English, it's English. Call to action, you can click anything, but usually I just select listen now, as I want them to listen. And then the click through URL, make sure please make sure that you're linking either to your Spotify artists page, like the page where like all your music is, or a single, or in the case of our tutorial, make sure it's the playlist URL, because this is where they're going to go when they click on your ad. So please pay as much attention as you can to this. And then tracking tags. If you have something to track like your advertising, you can kind of put that there, but I don't really jack with that. So next, you can choose you have to get a logo. So for me, I already have a logo made. So all I got to do is go in my library, select, let it load. Boom. There you go. Then from there, you need a companion image. And again, I already have a ton of images I can kind of choose. So I'm going to just go with this here. But just make sure, before I kind of gloss over this one, make sure if you're advertising, make it tailor-made to the ad. So that way, it's representing what you want the person to click on. So for me, I have a bunch of resources and stuff. So I'm just throwing something there for the sake of this illustration. But try to keep that in mind. And you can even make something like a Spotify canvas for the ad. So that way it kind of loops, like you have a little video that's looping. It doesn't have to have any audio, but it can be like the Spotify canvas. So if you have something like that, maybe it might keep people more engaged. Just try to figure out what works for your campaign. Now, next is the audio segment. And before I get into this, I will say that, there's going to be a part for the next 20 or 30 seconds where it's going to be silent. So that way I can kind of put my advertisement there. So you can get a sense of like what you should be doing. But basically, you're going to want to keep your ad anywhere between 15 and 30 seconds. And then from there, you want to explain, hey, what does your ad offer? What emotional feel is the person going to get? And then try to keep it concise and to the point, as you don't want to waste the listener's time. Be very respectful of that and just try to keep it short, because they have a billion different things they're getting advertised with, and they don't need somebody who's going to be roundabout. You want to get straight to the point and highlight what the playlist, song, or artist offers, okay? So with that said, I'm going to go choose from my library, and I'm going to remain quiet for a bit so you can kind of hear what's going on with the ad. So let's go. If you're seeing this ad, chances are you're a fan of Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. If so, check out the playlist this ad is attached to, as it features a mix of electronic, lo-fi, and rock tracks that are covers, remixes, and original songs for Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss characters. And if you enjoy it, please be sure to share and like. Thank you. So I'm going to select that, and make sure you play the sound of whatever song or playlist or style that your artist is promoting. Make sure it plays in the ad, so that way the listener can kind of get a gauge of like, oh, this is what I'm getting into going into this playlist. Try not to overpower it, but just make it loud enough to where they can hear. So that out of the way, we can go ahead and click next. As on the next page, it'll tell you all the information you inputted. You can edit any information, and from there you can kind of figure out what your payment situation is going to be, and then you just make sure you acknowledge all the intellectual rights and you agree to the terms and conditions, and that's about it. Really, that's it. I might make a separate ad on what to do to like create it, like scripting out the ad and stuff, but like this is pretty much a straightforward process of how I make my ads and how I like get them to perform well. And as an example of like one of my ads that have done phenomenally well, let me go to 50. Let's see. Hold up, sorry. I'm sorting it by name. Let me scroll through. Click on this ad set, and then view report. And as you can see, these ads do phenomenally well if you're able to find the right niche to promote to. Like, these are some pretty hefty numbers. So with that said, I hope this has really answered a lot of your questions, and I hope if you have any further issues or questions or just concerns, comment below and I'll try to help you. You can also contact me at The Frost at frostfm.net if you want some consulting or anything or just advisement. But other than that, I just hope this helped somebody because it can be a confusing process, and have a wonderful day.